Before I begin, I made an entire build a roster style game for if Nickelodeon crossed over with Capcom, basically Nicktoons. And while I was still having problems with spacing, I think it's a good video that you should check out because it was actually a response to Nickelodeon All Star Brawl 2's roster and Marvel vs. Capcom's potential return before Marvel Tokon kind of made everyone realize that wasn't going to happen for a while. So go check it out if you can. I put a lot of thought into it and it would mean the world if you supported it. 400 views ain't bad, but still. So, Nickelodeon All Star Brawl 3. Okay, this is all speculation and a potential rumor since some people have argued that this leak was staged because a few models clearly don't look like they belong, but I'm gonna give it the benefit of the doubt. The first game had an okay roster and potential. The second game improved everything, but the roster choices were definitely divisive, questionable, and proved that Nickelodeon and some legal issues were preventing the game from reaching its full potential. That being said, if you made an entire crossover with Nickelodeon vs. Capcom because you felt Nick All-Star Brawl's 2 roster lacked franchise diversity, that means I'm gonna hate this one too, right? Well, not quite. So if you made it this far, type long live Nicktoons and let's get started. First of all, thank Rice they didn't include any more Spongebob reps. I was getting death threats when I said that the core 3 for the first game made sense since Sandy was chosen over Squidward, since Sandy usually gets picked over Squidward in most video games with SpongeBob, only to get cut in the sequel, which pissed off quite a fair number of people. So with a bigger roster, at least all 6 can be in. Like, in terms of SpongeBob representation in a fighting game, there's really no one else I would add unless people really want Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy or Man Ray. And even though Larry the Lobster would be cool, come on, this is Nick All-Star Brawl, not SpongeBob and Friends. The next choice is the one that's been causing a bunch of heads to roll, and that's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles representation. Here's the thing, I actually get it, and I'm not too mad. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. SpongeBob, Avatar, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were obviously going to fill up the roster as a majority. And if we had 7 turtle reps in the game, people would complain that the game is pushing them way too much. Granted, people were saying that was the case with Avatar when they got Aang, Zuko, Toph, Azula, and Iroh, well, and Korra. But we'll talk about that later. As for TMNT itself, while I am a little annoyed April is here again, Casey was a requested choice and one that could offer some variety, and most people were confused on why Shredder went from playable to a boss when they could have had him as both. The thing with me and Turtles rep is if we aren't going to get all 4 of the Turtles in one game, I think at the very least all the Turtles should have Leo as their representative, but either a swap mechanic or the other Turtles show up for some specials and movesets. And at the very least, if they can't do what Injustice did, they could at least appear for the final Smash or in victory animations. If they do that, I don't think people would complain, especially since they do want to play as more Turtles rep or just play as all the Turtles in some way or form. Now, next up is the Avatar representation. Now, look, I actually had Azula on my wish list way back in the day, and I have no problem with Iroh since they tried to make them unique fighters. But I remember a lot of people being upset Zuko was DLC and that the game was having too many Avatar reps, with almost all of them being firebenders, especially since Toph was cut. I think they cut Toph in the second game because they were struggling to make her moveset work competitively. And I know some people want Katara and Sokka, but Korra uses water bending mostly, and we do have a balanced rep from all 4 nations. And for airbending, Korra for water, Zuko for fire, and Toph for earth, which is ideal. I wouldn't mind a Korra rep, and I don't hate Iroh, but they have the core essentials, and people won't complain Avatar has too many reps if this is true. The backlash towards the Loud House representation genuinely surprises me. Okay, I've talked about this before, but Nick's in a weird situation where their roster should try to appeal to as many Nickelodeon fans, but people have argued that the game main demographic is for the hardcore Smash-like Ludosity players who care more about the competitive scene, which is kind of stupid because this was an argument that started with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, and that game's lack of resources combined with the mistreatment of its franchises from Disney's higher-ups who tried to put the blame on Capcom, who couldn't even get multiple other franchises in there, caused that game to... Well, it didn't do terribly, but it eventually earned back its sales goals. But crossover games are supposed to appeal to both crowds, not divide them. But when it comes to Loud House representation, this is easily a hot topic issue because Loud House is one of Nickelodeon's newer IPs, and 2016 being considered new is not a great sign. Like, besides Korra, it's the only new series with any new reps at all. So you have the people who stopped watching Nickelodeon after Danny Phantom and Avatar, who have no idea who the Loud House characters are. You have the people that did keep up with Nickelodeon in the last years debating on if Loud House representation should even be in the game to begin with, and who should be in the game. And then there's people like me who are a mix of both, where I keep up with learning about Nick even though I don't have cable anymore. The biggest talking point is that Lincoln's coming back after he was cut from the second game, which I thought more people would be happy about him returning, because when this first game came out, The competitive scene of 30 to 50-year-olds didn't know him enough, and his moveset alienated the casual Nickelodeon fans because it didn't pull from all of Lincoln's adventures and things he could do in the show. The problem was when he was cut, everyone thought he would have returned because he was a character everyone agreed needed a moveset revamp. Which, when the second game was doing that for all the returning characters, it was jarring that he wasn't chosen, but they also had the castle from the movie as a new stage, when that stage was from a movie about him stepping out of his sister's shadow and shining on his own merits. And cutting him completely went against the movie's message, since his sister Lucy got to be in the game over him. So the fact that if this is true that he is back, it should be a good thing because either the developers learned from this mistake and actually watched the show to make his moveset more accurate, or they heard the feedback when they started development on the third game. I am surprised a Loud sibling got cut because Lucy is like one of the least controversial out of the siblings because all of the siblings are kind of divisive in some way. I talked about this in my Nick vs. Capcom video, but I was actually vouching hard for Luann because her prankster style would work well in the game. But for anyone hating on Ronnie Ann and the Casagrandes, I remember people voting for her to be included since that would mean Lincoln and Ronnie Ann would be able to fight side by side given their close, I want to say relationship, but apparently them dating was retcon. But the only concern is if they're going to make her moveset different from the other sports team characters. Now we've got a few returners. Ren and Stimpy were going to stay, but Power Toastman making a comeback was a bit of a surprise. He has been in games before Nick Brawl 1 since Nicktoons MLB was also a thing, so his inclusion was a shock, including to the 2000 kids that didn't grow up with him. And when he was cut, it made sense, but a lot of people felt bad, and I really can't blame them. He is very unique. Thank Rice El TIgre wasn't snubbed though. I can think of another rep for him like Vendetta or Santana, but Santana was a boss already and like everyone agreed like he should have been there. But it looks like they fixed the issues preventing Catdog from returning, and naturally they were going to keep the angry Beavers. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Garfield and Jon. While most people are okay with their inclusion because Garfield did air on Nick in the past and Viacom owns the rights now, a big problem people have is that their inclusion is weird when they don't even have a proper show on Nick, and something that one of the devs is playing favorites, especially when there's not a lot of other franchises people have been clamoring to be in this game, in this franchise. I'm in the middle, curious to see how Jon will play, but can Garfield at least get a new moveset or at least a new special Final Smash? You know what I mean, at least. Then there's Jimmy and Sheen. I know people want Hugh back, but honestly, I'm happy. I know people are questioning how the hell can Sheen fight, but don't forget he's got super speed from his powers, the big brain Sheen form, the time he learned martial arts, and has the video game transformation, where using an Ultra Crystal to turn into Mega Ultra Sheen ended up saving the day. So I have no problem with Sheen's inclusion. And at least Jenny wasn't cut, but they added one of the most requested villains to join in Vexus. While I've struggled before on what Vexus' ultimate move should be, Nick really doesn't have a ton of popular female villains. Like, she, Azula, and Vicky are like the top three, so I'm glad she finally got in. Nigel not coming back would have been a travesty for a lot of people. Alright, Helga and Gerald. Well, we know that Grandma Girdle was a choice considered by Nickelodeon, which a lot of people felt was a bit unfair because that felt like Nick just flexing the corporate muscles instead of listening to what the fans wanted. And I do feel like for most Hey Arnold fans, if the option was between Gertie and Helga, Helga is a choice that everyone picked, so I'm not too mad about that one. I do know people are so mad that Arnold was a chosen with the idea that he might be a pacifist, but I do think they could make Arnold work as a fighter. I talked about that in my Nick vs. Capcom video that I will link, but yeah, I'm not too mad, but at least everyone should be happy that Helga's back. Next up is Danny Phantom and Vlad. I'm a little bit surprised they cut Ember, but I didn't know some people didn't like her. If it's because of the controversy where some fan was obsessed and did something terrible in her name, then that's not the fault of the show or the character, that's the fan. But everyone was questioning why Vlad was not playable if they already made him a model. So it looks like they finally fleshed him out to be a fully playable character at this time, which I'm at least glad for. Oh, Blina. Yeah, this is why a lot of people were upset that she got cut from the first game, because she's like one of Nickelodeon's first female characters, and she comes from one of the most earlier Nicktoons. I would have cut April for her, but I'm glad she's back. Now, Kitty from Tuff Puppy. Yeah, I remember people saying that she should have been in the game over Dudley, and she was on my list for DLC in my Nick vs. Capcom video game, so I feel like they could combine her martial arts skills and gadgets, so no complaints here. Zim and Rocko are back, but Kid Danger. I saw people confused by this, but remember, Henry Danger did have a spin-off animated show, but it was kind of rushed, so people didn't really like it, and it got canceled after one season. But technically, that show is considered a Nicktoon, so by all extent, I'm surprised he wasn't in the second game, since this is the same company that put JoJo Siwa as a Nickelodeon character in Kart Racers 2. They probably won't bring her back, but who cares? Like, Kid Danger is a much better fit. Timmy Turner, and say it with me. Thank you. Finally. Now, this is because Nirvana shut down. First of all, do not celebrate that. Nirvana made a lot of awesome shows, and it sucks so many people losing their jobs. That is not a good thing. And even if you could argue that they had some role in behind Timmy not getting in, that's on Nickelodeon for not working on a deal to get Timmy in. Either way, if this is real, yeah, he's basically going to be a game buyer, especially since he was in Nick Dial of Destiny, since a lot of people were just happy to see the Nicktoons reunite. Alright, we got Scisssors from Rock, Paper, Scissors, and this is one I'm surprised people hate. Look, I get it, I abandoned Nick for their crappy practices towards their shows, but Rock, Paper, Scissors doesn't seem like a bad show. But it's all it takes, like Nickelodeon doesn't usually use their current shows in their video games. First of all, they have, like, Tat getting in over Timmy is still a controversial choice from Globs, and Nicktoons MLB has a few good examples. But second of all, why should they not put in their new franchises? There's so many new franchises after Korra that they could have put in their games throughout the years, but they didn't. Sanjay and Craig has a shape-shifting snake when the two of them have gone through some crazy feats and adventures. Someone could make Harvey Beaks work. Ronnie Ann has her own show, so I guess they count. And heck, Middlemost Post was an animated cloud with all types of variety. Heck, they still own Transformers Earthspark. Optimus, Bumblebee, and Nightshade are like right there for a game like this. I know people are down with Hazel from Very Odd Parents, New Wish. Max and Midnights is a new show about Girl Knights animated by the same group who worked on Big Nate since they have the same author. Heck, they have a show where video gamers fight video game glitches and have fought with fighting game moves. You know, glitch techs. So if people are mad with new franchises, yeah, the kids still watching the current shows should get some representation from characters they're familiar with. That's not just 15 SpongeBob characters. But yes, there are some characters and franchises I think are missing. The fact that there's no Rocket Power reps is still shocking. Chalk Zone doesn't have any reps, neither does Cat Scratch. I thought Tack would be a shoo-in at this point. Back at the Barnyard, since Otis was like one of the most requested characters. Vendetta from Making Fiends. And the fact that Fanboy and Chum Chum not having any reps at all, like, come on, Kyle is a shoo-in with all his magic spells, is still a surprise. And Glitch Tech's not having anyone at all still sucks. That's like the ultimate thing that would get me to want to buy these games. But we've got Casagrandes, Kid Danger, Very Odd Parents, Tuff Puppy, and Rock, Paper, Scissors reps. That's 5 new franchises, which is 3 more than the last game, and 10 new characters. I would give this roster a 7.8 out of 10. It's definitely improving, and I hope this game does pretty well for itself if these leaks are true. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please give my Nickelodeon vs. Capcom video a watch. Tell me your thoughts below and which characters you like and dislike. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm aiming for 1,000 subs by the end of the year, and reminding you all of that actually works. So, BIP Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.